All right, looks like there's people jumping in. We'll give it a few more minutes before we get started, just to let everyone jump in. But we're excited to chat through some awesome content today with y'all. Should have done some intro music.
Drew can sing. He's a good singer.
Yeah. Well, we'll take some requests. What do you guys want to hear?
You know, Tony Bennett died last week, so maybe a little standards, a little bit. Start singing some of that. So
There you go.
Well, that's a little before my time, so I may have to rely on you for that, Doug. I can be the background.
here you go.
Love it. Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to our webinar discussion. We're really excited to chat through how to craft a compelling sponsorship proposal. This should take about 30 to 40 minutes. If you have questions throughout, feel free to drop those in the chat. We'll also save some time at the end just to go through some Q&A. So if you have questions and we want to get to them at the end, we can talk through those questions. If we can't get through everything within that 40-45 minutes, we'll make sure to follow up and answer your questions afterwards. But just some quick intros. My name is Jesse Thane. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Sponsor CX. With me, I've got Drew Annis, who's a sports sponsorship selling expert. He's got upwards of 15 years of experience in the industry. And then we've also got Doug Holtzman here, VP of Sports at Sports Digita. He also brings another 20 plus years of experience. So lots of experience and brain power here in this room. I'm proud to be in here with these guys. Just some housekeeping items. This will be recorded and shared with everyone who registered. So if for some reason you need to jump out early or you have an associate that couldn't make it live, we'll make sure to send out the recording to them. But with all that being said, I think we'll kind of start this conversation off with a poll question real quick, just kind of get a feel for where everyone's at, and then we'll get going. I'm gonna go ahead and launch that poll question here. We'll let it run for about 30 seconds. Feel free to submit your answer real quick, and then we'll dive right into it.
Now, Doug, did you come up with these poll questions or who came up with those?
You know, I did not right there, but you know, I'm looking at these answers right here that you could do. So I'm answering them all.
I think you're an expert at every one of those answers.
We'll use the term loosely when we say expert.
Very true.
All right, we'll give it another 10 seconds to let everyone submit their answer. All right, perfect. Looks like the leading pain point is getting the first meeting. Interesting. Well, awesome. I'll go ahead and close that poll out. Just to kind of overview what we're going over today, we've got 5 key bullet points that we'll be talking through. The first one is build more real relationships. Then we'll talk about touch points, which ones are working versus which ones aren't working. I'll talk about how do you tell your story, right? And then that getting your yes, which is probably the most crucial piece of this entire process. And then how do you show your ROI? So let's dive right into it. The first one we'll talk about building more real relationships, which to me, this is where it all starts, right? If you talk about sponsorships, something I'm quickly learning in this space is you've got to have those real authentic relationships. So let's dive into that, guys. Doug, you want to get us started here with real relationships?
Sure. You know, it's funny. I learned this early on in my career, and I think it's more and more important as I've gone through. And I say this to people all the time. Ready for this? People don't want to do business with a-holes, right? Simple as that, right? So you've got to always be growing your network, but like when you're building relationships, like you want your circle to be very large. And again, you're looking out for your circle, because when you then, let's say, you know, you talk sponsorships, why that's so big is when I'm dealing with someone, right? We already have that relationship. We have that trust with each other. It's you know, sometimes you get weird when you don't know the person. So again, it's always expand your network.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I think for me, with building those real or authentic relationships, a lot of it comes down to having that wide circle. But how to get to that wide circle is really just finding authentic touch points, like finding ways to build that trust with that specific person and then acknowledging certain wins for them, right? Like for me, I try to look for unique, like kind of touch points, whether they're professional or personal, and then acknowledge those, whether that's like a with a small gift card or just saying, hey, wanted to wish you happy birthday, whatever that looks like, right? I think being able to find a way to stand out in the crowd within as you're building those initial relationships will help you long term. And that's some of the things that I really have tried to embrace within my career. I've been fortunate to be surrounded with and by a lot of great mentors like Doug and others within the space. And that's one of the big things that they taught me early on is finding the people that you want to have in your tribe and then just praising them when you can, but also acknowledging their successes and wins, because people always like to feel good when they do something big or have a big moment.
I think key is right, looking out for each other, right? As you're growing up throughout the business. And again, as you never know, like again, as we could have met each other 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, you never know in that time is that we start working together, and how we can help each other. And again, just be genuine. Again, I hate fake, and you could totally tell fake now. And I think people, when we start getting into selling, right, are just trying to go so freaking fast, right? And they forget about like that relationship. Take a step back, talk to them, find out all their stuff, but look out for their person who they're going after, right? Look out for their best interests. If you do that, it's going to work out most of the time.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Doug. You've been instrumental, I know, with a lot of different people looking out for them, especially around the time of COVID. Everybody in this industry, right, got hurt a little bit in some way, shape, or form, whether it's being laid off, whether it's taking a hit on salary or something. I know you spent a lot of time on LinkedIn, on other social media channels, highlighting available opportunities, networking with people, trying to be a resource to help connect them with their next best gig or next best opportunity. And I think that's how you've established a ton of trust across the industry with a lot of these different people on the sponsorship side, but also on the corporate side as well. Because your network is not only just teams; it does go as deep as brands and potential sponsors. So, and I know you did a really great job. We talked about that a lot during COVID. We lived at that time like basically down the street from each other. So I did want to make sure I give you props for that.
Good. I'm just trying to get a gift card from you. You already mentioned that earlier. So that's my goal in this whole process right here. So you never know.
I thought our time last week at the NHL meetings and all of those all the bottle service we got, just kidding.
That's true.
But that did not happen. So sorry, go ahead.
It was bottled water service for sure. No, but I think
sure.
that is key, right? And that's, I had mentors in my career that really helped me. And I kind of felt, and right when COVID started, I had some of my mentors talk like Steve Shanwald, we had a deep conversation. He's like, it's your turn to do it as well. And I really took that to heart and also got people that I grew up in the business with to help as well. Because again, you need sometimes motivation. You need a sounding board. As I always say, when you talk to your parents, they're never going to say your, what is ugly. Right. So they, again, is you just have to have people that are going to look out for you. And again, always look out for people. I think they're going to look out for you as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think some of the main things we heard throughout this segment was, the first part is just be genuine, be yourself, be real, right? It's very easy to sniff out someone that is being fake. That's becoming more and more apparent these days, right? And I think the second thing, something that Drew mentioned, is like care about them on a personal level, congratulate them with their successes, right? As a marketer, someone that gets sold to very frequently at every position I'm at, I think the people that stand out the most to me across industries are those that send me a congrats message when I get a new job, right? Or when I complete a big project, or we bring on a new partner. Those different sales professionals are reaching out to me saying congrats, even if they're not actually trying to sell me in my current position, right? But maybe someday down the road, when I am in a position to be sold to, I'll remember that rapport and that relationship that was built and established before. So I love that. I think I think it all starts with authenticity, right? Being just your true self. But with that being said, I'd love to kind of segue into our next talking point, right? Which is touch points. So which of those touch points are working versus which aren't? And I think that kind of plays into relationships, right? You got to utilize these different channels to, continue building rapport and continue growing those relationships. So let's chat about that a bit.
Yeah, so I think on the touch point side, you've kind of got to figure out and determine who is your audience, right? Who are you speaking to, right? Because there's going to be some people that are more apt to do business via, let's say, text message or phone, or like phone call, or via email, or even LinkedIn. You just have to kind of figure out what's going to work for the audience that you're reaching out to. And then also what works for your personality. Everybody has a different selling personality, right? So it's kind of, to go back to authenticity, it's kind of about that too. It's like, what suits your skill set the best? And then trying to mirror that with what you believe is the right way to approach your prospective partner or prospect. So for me, it's I have a good mix of probably a little bit of LinkedIn, mostly email and phone calls, and then trying to set up in-person meetings if and where we can. I think, we got out of in-person meetings when COVID hit. We got more into the virtual, we got more into the Zoom, the Teams, what have you. But there's still nothing really can compare to connecting with someone on a personal level. And I'm sure there's data out there somewhere that will say, like, in-person meetings you have a higher conversion rate to some that are over the phone or on Zoom. But Doug, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's it's funny. I think I naturally was doing kind of touch points, but really never talked about it until ironic that Drew and I worked together at which was then ISP. It's turned IMG College at that, which is now Learfield. With Ben Sutton, he talked to us about touch points and all the different types of touch points. And that it's so key, right? Sometimes, again, it's in person, sometimes it's phone, text, email, Zoom, however it is. But I think what is so key is everybody's on their own country, right? And you've got to figure that country, how that's going to work, because everyone works a little differently, and that's so, because again, I don't always check, I'll get 150 emails a day. I'm gonna be honest, like 150 emails, that's a lot of emails, right? So if you're getting me via email, like, it's gonna take a little while for me to get to it, but people like who really know me know, like, as I'm holding up my phone right here, text me. I'm gonna get it right away. I will get to you quick as that. Like, that's the best way to get to me. And then also, as we talk about in person. So like if Drew was selling to me, again, he's got to learn real quick, text me. You're gonna get me. I'm quick to get back to a text. Email is gonna take me a little bit. You got to be honest, and then there's a lot of BS emails, which we'll get into as well later. But, but it's so key right there. Just find out what makes that person tick. And again, is you don't want to take too much of their time. Sometimes right. It's hey, short, sweet, to the point, but we're good.
And Doug, let's dive into this a little bit. I know at one point in time in our careers, our paths crossed I was on the property side selling to you at MBI. So, yeah, I quickly learned in that sense, like, let's put the personal text aside and I can text you from a business standpoint. But let's talk about some of your experiences there. What did you see when you were having a lot of different sellers from a media, from a sponsorship, from a all sort nonprofit type of background reaching out to you? What did you tell us a little bit about those experiences?
Everywhere in my career, I've always said I've kind of learned what not to do, right? This is what happened here, because I was getting everybody and their mother reaching out for me, because now all of a sudden I've got the money and I'm spending. Before I was the seller, now I'm spending. Now I'm literally buying money. And I would get 100 decks plus a day, right? And when I tell you, when I would look back and someone would email me 25 times, like, come on, man. I mean, again, is like, so, and you could see when people were desperate on that one. I could tell on this one. But little things like this is when you're trying to work so fast, right? Take a step back, look at actually what you're writing. Is there errors in it? Again, I'm very anal. So like if you wrote me and it was there, and there, let's say, and you wrote the wrong one, I'm so fixated on that. I'm not going to go past that. And I've already moved on to another subject because like you didn't take the time to do that. And like I took it personal on that one. Or, again, but these reach outs, again, get to know the person, listen what I'm telling you, and that's such a big thing on that one. Ask the questions and listen, shut up and listen. Simple as that, right? Listen to what I want. I'm going to give you exactly what I need for this one. And then obviously then you'll go from there to that next steps on that one. And I also, and it's funny, I always do it, right? So when I'm talking to someone and let's say I'm selling, I'm always going to get in next steps, no matter what. Like before we end the call, hey, look, what's next steps? I'll pull up my calendar and I'm not going to let you off the phone until like I've got, because again, I'm busy, you're busy. Let's get it on the calendars, put it in. We're good. We're gold. Can't tell you how many people don't ever do that. Like, I would see it like time after time after time. I'm like, follow up with me, man. I'm like, it used to bug the crap out of me, but it's so true, right? So again, don't email someone 80 times. Again, go back to the thing of touch points. How many times should I touch him? But listen, take notes and follow up with those. Because again, I am going to tell you exactly what I need when I need it from.
And that's a great point too. I think, a lot of things wherever I've been, I've tried to find ways to bring value in every touch point that I have. There can only be so many, hey, I'm just checking in kind of emails, or hey, just following up on this below. Like at some point you have to bring value to the person you're speaking to. And so I think that's a really good point. I know I want to piggyback on the 100 decks a day that you got at MBI a little bit later here, but I think that's a really good point is just making sure that there are no errors, and that when you are reaching out, you are putting in time to make it valuable to the person that you're speaking to.
Yeah.
Just 100%. It's just that you just remember, like, again, who are you going after, but more importantly, how can you help them? But also, like, they don't want to talk to you. They love you, but they don't want to talk to you for 3 hours, right?
Totally.
So how can you get short, sweet, to the point, and you're good? And that also goes back to relationships, right? If I knew you, I'm going to take the call. If I didn't know you, I'm again. So let's talk minutes, right? So if I knew you, you send something to me, I'll give you 3 to 5 minutes, right? So I'm looking through it. If I didn't know who you were, you may get 3 to 5 seconds. I don't know who you are. I don't know. You didn't even talk to me or whatever it is. And I think that's so key on that one.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think tying back to relationships, right, where we started this conversation is crucial. Like having that rapport, so that when you are following up with them and checking in with them, your message can be personalized, right? And you can add some sort of
100%.
value to your message, not just a, hey, checking in. You've been able to sign that agreement yet? It's like, no, if I had been able to, I would have done it. Right. So I think that's really important, is having that relationship there to understand how to reach out to that person and make sure that you're taking the time to be personalized in your follow-up.
And it's funny, Jesse, Drew and I always talk about this when we talk about videos, right? So when he's following up with people, right, he's putting a video like, hey, Doug, this is Drew, great conversation we had on Tuesday. During our conversation, we talked about XYZ and how we're going to help with boom, 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 boom. Take a look. It's all in here, blah, blah, blah. But he wrapped it up real quickly but told me exactly what, because again, I'm working on 10,000 things at once. Get that. Yep. Again, I'm as I get older, my memory goes down. I won't remember this conversation after we all get off right here. That's how old I'm getting. There's grays. There's a lot of grays. But where I'm getting at is like, hey, put that so they remember the conversation and how you're going to help them. Simple as that.
Totally. And I think that's one of the nice things. I as a Digideck user, as a sports digital user, I think that's probably the nicest feature that you guys have, is allowing that video to recap the discussion. Because it's funny, I posted something in our internal Slack channel. Our CTO was in the channel, and it was kind of directed to him. And he just typed in TDLR or TLDR. Too long, didn't read. I was like, yep, I probably should have just called you, or we should have just done a quick video call. I shouldn't have done or sent that link to email. But I think that's a good reminder, like, be clear and concise when you're speaking to people. Nobody's going to read the 3-paragraph long email. Try to articulate your value proposition quickly, clearly, and concisely, and then move on.
Love that. That's great. And that kind of segues nicely into our next bullet point here, right? As we're sticking to our own bullet points and our key highlights. The next one is, how do you tell your story, right? So when you talk about storytelling, like, how do you weave in the organization's mission, vision, and impact and what they're trying to accomplish into a proposal? Can we chat about that a little bit here? I think I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I'd like to start out here with an example. And Doug, I think you were in this is an example from NSF this year. I think you were in this, I'm almost sure that you were in this breakout session, but it was with one of our mutual friends, Eric Platt with the Atlanta Hawks. And he was doing the session, and he was talking about just his process, right? Like, what does that look like? He said, at the Hawks, we have a clear understanding of who our audience is. And so when I'm working with my team, I make sure they understand what our value proposition is, and then who we have access to, who is our fan base, what are the demographics, what are their buying habits, what are their buying behaviors, those sorts of things, what categories are available, what categories are we strongest in, all these different things like this. But he also said, and I thought this was actually a really good point, is when he sits down at night after he puts his kids to bed, he and his wife may watch a little TV. Maybe they're reading a book, or she's reading a book while he's got like a game on or something, but he's got a pen and paper with him while he's watching TV, because he's looking at the commercials. He's looking at, who are these companies and these brands marketing to? And then from there, he's like, okay, I can see if this brand is going to fit within our portfolio and our audience, and I know that through our audience we'll be able to help them tell whatever story there is that they have to say. So I think the key is and for me, and on this is a lot of it's doing your research, and it's bringing something valuable to the table. Because, and again, you can probably touch on this too, Doug, like when you were at MBI, how many times did you just get like an overview that didn't really speak to anything or any client that you were working with? There was no data to support the audience. There was no really tailored or customized information to you. So you're kind of like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? And I think I made that same mistake when I was younger as a seller. It's something when I was selling sponsorships, when I got to a certain age, I clearly pivoted and started looking for more data, analytics, and things to provide these companies to show, yeah, I have who you want to talk to.
Yeah, and not to give Eric a big head, but love the guy. But I'll tell you what something cool about him, I always tell it every time I see him, is, he came from ticket sales and switched over. Not a lot of people do it successfully on that one, but he's thought about it every step of the process, and he took bits of pieces that worked for him there, right, and applied it to sponsorship as he was learning. And he is great, and that guy is knowledgeable. I feel not smart when I'm around him, because again, he's constantly thinking of how, again, to get whatever XYZ brand into their basketball team, right, and get them loving it. But I think too, what's big on telling the story is, first and foremost, you've got to ask so many questions during this process, right? Find out their pain points. Like literally, like again, when people don't ask, again, the more you ask questions, the more I'm able to open up to you and give you real answers. Again, gets back to have we known each other before as well, right? And relationships. But, pain points, find their market challenges. What are their needs? What are their wants? What are they looking for? What are they looking to achieve? Right? If you don't know this, why are you even going in to begin with? Right? Then you're just going in blind, and you're literally just selling like this. You're just throwing up against the board and hoping it sticks. Right? Not going to happen that way. But and then what does return on investment look like for them? You got to think about that in telling the story, because if I don't know what that looks like for you, how the heck am I going to figure out what to give you that's going to work on that one? So ask questions, keep on asking questions. And again, even if you almost know the answer to, you've got to ask, but find out too. And people say this all the time, what's worked, but what hasn't worked for them. Again, there's a lot of times you learn what not to do, right? On things that have not worked for you so far. So, and then look at, how much are they able to is it going to be all on you all, the team? Is it going to be them, the partners that are going to do it for activation? Again, there's so many things that you need to find out with this. And again, as long as they're engaged with you, ask those questions. It's so important. And then from there, right, when you're getting to the presentation, bring up the pain points that he talked about. Bring up what he's looking to do, how you're going to give it to him and show his return on investment. Remind him that. Same thing when you go to the video. Hey, hey, Jesse, when we talked, you talked about X, Y, and Z and how it's can help with A, B, and C, whatever. So again, this is all like coming a full circle with this right there. So again, is you've got to be able then when you're telling the story, right, then you got to show them exactly what they're going to get. I can't tell them, don't think that because you wrote something, I know what the hell it is. Right. So with technology these days, it's easier to do things. So for instance, I'm just making this up. Let's say you're doing in baseball, a stolen base promotion, and you came up with this just off the top of your head. So this is, and instead of just, you could write about it and sure. But now you could go into the announcer's booth before the game and be like, hey, dude, here's what I need you to do from a radio standpoint. Fictitiously, let's just do it where Ozzie Albies steals second base. Now everybody wins at Chick-fil-A, whatever it is, right? And that announcer could actually get it to you right there and show, whatever, Chick-fil-A, exactly what they're going to get. And that's awesome. That's awesome. And that's telling a story right there. You can do the same thing from your TV guys. But don't be afraid to do this. If you're not, somebody else is, number one. But somebody else is telling that story even better. And guess what? Someone else is going to sell it other than you.
Yeah, and that's a great point, especially on the property side of the business. Like if you've got assets like that, like TV announcers or your PA announcers or radio, right? Have them mock something up for the proposal. And if you're using a great tool like Digideck, right, you can slide that right into the presentation and make sure that is at the forefront of their mind and how you're going to support their program. But I think to go back a step, the question that I always used to ask when I was selling sponsorships was, what does success look like? And so I think that would help build and help everybody understand, not only from at the time when I was selling the sales side, but also from, to your point too, Doug, like the operations, the partnership strategy, and the activation side. You've got a lot of different stakeholders that you have to get approval from. You've got the client, and then you've got other internal ones, activation, strategy, and then even possibly venue ops, right? So it's getting everyone's buy-in. And then so the best way to do that is really understanding from the client, what does success look like and how is this going to be measured?
300%.
I think that's very important and oftentimes overlooked, which is defining what success looks like. Sometimes I think we make just assumptions like, oh, obviously there's going to make a lot of money, but oftentimes there's more to it than just that, right? Like there is a message they're trying to get across. They do have a mission that they're trying to align with. So that's great. Sorry, moving on to our next point for the sake of time is getting a yes, right? And we started with that poll question. I just want to bring up those results again real quick, just to refresh our memory here. We asked, what was the biggest pain point with getting a yes? And 44% of you all answered getting the first meeting. So maybe let's touch on that with getting a yes, and we can dive into other aspects there. But what have you guys seen in your experience that has been successful with getting that first meeting, with being able to make that first pitch and get to know them and build that rapport and relationship?
Doug, I'll let you start this one.
Yeah. So again, comes full circle. You got to think about the bigger your circle is, the more it's easier for me to contact Jesse, right? And then he's going to take my call and we're going to meet. That's number one. So, right. So always build your circle. But if not, right, you've got to tell your story real quick for it. Nowadays, number one is if you're not utilizing LinkedIn, or if you're just going on once a day, it's not enough. Like it is the biggest key in business today, like 100%, where you could connect with someone, find out, like, again, as Drew knows, I'll always work University of Kansas into a conversation right there. And when we're, even when we were just together at the NHL meetings, like I'm going to work it into a conversation, especially when I and I'm like, oh, he was a Jayhawk or she was a Jayhawk, whatever it is. And we're going to bond from there. So find, again, is what's Jesse, what's my connection to you, right? Let's find that out. So do a little searching yourself. Number one, to get in, because again, is when someone reaches out to me that went to University of Kansas, where I got my undergrad, that went to Northern Illinois, where I got my master's at, right? That's from St. Louis, where I'm from, or from Chicago, or works, whatever it is, right? I'm going to probably give them more time a day than everybody else. So find that common ground that you have, but also don't be afraid to ask friends for intros. I do it all the time to friends, all the time. It's like, hey, Drew, I'm going to connect you. I'm making this up to Gerald Jones, right? And even though they know it's like, and I will make an intro for them. Because again, he would do the same thing for me if I was doing it on that one. So don't be afraid to rely on your circle and ask questions like, hey, can you help me get in here? Right. So you've got to get that first one in on that one. So that's where I'd start with, again, rely heavy on LinkedIn and rely heavy on your circle, right, as well, and find that connection that you have with that person. Because again, if someone from Kansas contacts me, 99.9999 times out of 100, I am going to get back to that person. If someone from University of Missouri, did I say Missouri? I meant Missouri, but I'm really talking Missouri. Or because I know Bridget's on here there's something, this community college called Kansas State or something like that, community college. But if something like that, if they would contact me, I'm not going to contact them. No, I kid on that one, but I'm always going to look out for, right, someone that went to my school or wherever that's from.
Well, and I think that's a great point too, is finding those common grounds, right? Like I have a really good example of, David King at the Timberwolves, right? I know we both know David. He and I played a sport in the same conference, a Division II conference in the Carolinas called Conference Carolinas. I saw that. I hit him up and it was pretty much a cold email, and said, hey, saw you played basketball at Barton College. I played soccer at Erskine College. I've never run into this before, but would love just to have a chance to chat with you. Got a meeting later that week. So to your point, Doug, it's finding that common ground to when you are reaching out for a cold introduction or cold meeting, it'll get you to the top of the line, right? So, and then the next point, you were right. It's how can we help each other? How can I help you get to or have a meeting with somebody that I know? Or I think probably one of the big things is on the property side is building a relationship with your vendors, because they're like, you're not the only people they're working with. You're not they probably have other connections that if you have a good relationship with those folks, they're going to help open different doors for you, especially on like the the concessions and food side. I mean, they've got to buy from somewhere, right? And so there could be ways that you can get up to the right people with those food products or different things of that nature. So I think, yeah, those are all really, really good points. But I also think getting to yes is a lot about telling that story and why it matters for that company to work with you. And we covered a lot of this, but I think if you're able to articulate what their pain points are and then show them how you're going to deliver that clearly and concisely, hopefully it's through a Digideck, right?
That's plug number 3, by the way. I like that. I guess I owe you a card now.
No, I mean, I think, I've been a big fan of the tool since probably you started there, but yeah, I think it's being able to show and tell that story through video, through, other unique audio experiences. So many people are like our CTO. He's not going to read something that's too long. So if you can keep it to where it's not text heavy, but it's going to captivate their attention, you're going to have a really good shot at getting it done. So that's just something that I've learned throughout selling sponsorships as well as, on the tech side.
Yeah, and I think with that, Drew, is that, at the end of the day, right, you're telling that story, right? You're talking about the return on investment and how you're going to do it. And then here's something that people just forget how to do. Ask for the business. Simple as that. People are afraid to ask. But again, if you show that, you've answered all their questions, right? You showed exactly what they're going to get, and more importantly, how they're going to get the return on investment. ask for the business. Like, it's a simple thing, ask for it. And I always ask people, right, whether it's my company or outside my company, different teams, like, and they're asking me about different sponsorship ones. And I'm like, well, did you ask? Because I can't get an answer. Did you ask? Did you say yes or no? Right. So people need to be led a little bit. But, and by the way, it's, as I always say, it's okay to say no. I get told no all the time. That's fine. Like, great, I'm going to move on. But until you know, I'm going to, again, hound on hound, but always get that next step right in there. That's why you should always get it and say, hey, look, if we could do X, Y, and Z and hit all this stuff, this, this will work for you. That's good. Are you ready are you good to go? Ask for the the contract.
And I think the last point to that is you want your prospect or your prospective partner to feel like they have a say in this. Like, if you can make this, you can paint this picture for them to where it almost feels like their idea, right? How from a sponsorship standpoint, how can you go wrong, right? And that's something that we always tried to do in my old gig when I was selling sponsorships for Huddle and doing it on a regional and national scale. It's like, let's get enough information and we're going to build an integrated kind of partnership program to where that prospective partner is going to feel like this is their idea. So if they feel like that, you've already got their buy-in. So you can't really miss at that point, in my opinion.
It's great. Yeah, I love that. Let's move on to our last bullet point here, I guess, which is, how do you show ROI? I know we talked about that with getting the yes, right? That's what everyone wants to hear is, how am I going to get a return on my investment with this sponsorship? And so let's talk about some of those things. Like, what's the best way to kind of lay that out and show that?
I think first and foremost, and this is, I've been talking about this now for the last couple of years. I think it really started during COVID. Renewals are basically considered new business now. So let's be honest. It used to be like when I started years and years ago, 92, 93%, we figured, right? It was check that box that we're going to get. So we had $100 last year. We'll get back 92, 93 of it. Right. And then we got to figure out how to get that other 7 back, plus obviously all the new business from there. No longer. We'd walk naked to get that. Right. And that's what and now, because things change all the time. Right. So you've got to show the return on investment. I think, again, as you have plugged Sports Digi in our Digideck a little bit, this is where Sponsor CX came in, because I remember, talking with Jason years and years ago when there was another one out there and we're like, oh, this is terrible, right? You've got to show someone exactly what they are getting and what they received, right? Everything around it. Numbers are so key. But also you're gonna show the pictures, the videos, the audio clips, etc. But hey, here's the numbers behind it, because they have to justify it. The one bad thing in sports sponsorships that is so different than any other thing, and I learned this when actually at MBI, is there's nothing really universally accepted for a number when you talk about sports sponsorships. So prime example, if the outdoor space, I used to go to our outdoor billboard buyer, and I'd be like, what is this worth? I'm just curious, right? This sign on the side of the road. And they would tell me. And I said, okay. And I was like, how do they come up with that number? And he's going through that way. I said, so, okay, just curiosity, how would that happen on a sign inside a stadium? And he'd say, well, I can't figure that out. Wait, I could give you the exact number of people that are there, the eyeballs from television, but can't figure it out. So again, it's not universally accepted. So you need something to really, really show somebody what they received, all the benefits, as my New Orleans days, the lanyap, all the extras that you received as well, right? So again, you always say under promise, over deliver, but it's so true. How much more did you get for that? For spending $1, how much did you get out of that? And again, and I think that's so key. And that's where, again, I'm not just saying it to say it, but that's where Sponsor CX comes in, because it's such an easy platform for it, no brainer for that. So, again, there's your plug, Drew. How about that? That was unsolicited, by the way.
That's a great plug. That's a great plug. But I think you bring up a good point, and again, it kind of goes back to, for me, what I said. What does success look like? And so that will help you understand, what does the ROI need to be? How are they measuring it? And then from there, that's where you can start to build out your recaps. And so at Sponsor CX, I've used a lot of different tools. I've been around, I've used a lot of different tools. in February or January of 2022, when Jason showed me this product, I said, hey, this is better than anything I've ever seen within the industry. And I think I even may have called you right after or a day or two after and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Is this something that you think is a good idea? And you're like, yeah, go for it. But one of the things that we do really, really well is help you manage your inventory, as well as provide a space for not only to house your recap information, your pictures, your videos, your audio files, for proof of performance, but we give you a space to allow the partners even in to get a glimpse of it in real time. So they don't have to wait for the quarterly meeting, or they don't have to wait for the mid-season recap. They can see how hard you guys, the teams, the tournaments, the event is working for them in real time. And there's places where you can add those numbers, and they can all then come out in nice and pretty in that Digideck, right?
It is.
So, but no, I think, a lot of the ROI comes back to, at least for me, is like really getting a good understanding of what success looks like, but also if it's a year-long partnership you're having, schedule meetings. Like, look, there are times that, nobody wants to meet something that could be going poorly, right? Nobody wants to have that discussion. I will speak from experience and say those hard discussions build relationships. There was one point in time when I was selling for Huddle, the activation of a program didn't go the way that it was supposed to. So I made the case of like, hey, I need to go see this person. I need to go meet with their team in person, and I need to tell them what has happened. And you know what? They said, hey, let's figure this out. They continued to be a partner of ours for the rest of the time I was there. And to this day, I can still call them for anything that if I had something I wanted to share with them, or if I was doing something, they would take a meeting. So don't be afraid to have those quarterly mid-season recaps so that you can adjust to make sure the partnership is going well. If you feel like maybe we're not going to meet the metrics or the ROI that was previously discussed, have the quarterly recap meetings.
100%. 100%. It's funny. I could tell you we work with about, out of our 450 plus, about 350 of them are sports teams. And I would say 3/4 of them obviously not only do recaps, but are doing either monthly and or quarterly and or half season recaps, because there's no excuse anymore not to. Again, it shouldn't come to a surprise if they, you don't just meet at the end of the year, because then again, that's where surprises come. But also it gets back to touch points. Again, that's a point where you're not really selling, right? You're talking about it and how can you help get it better, whatever it is. On that one, again, is always, again, comes down to touch points throughout the time with them. And it's a non-selling touch point. Don't just always be the Doug salesman talking to you every time I'm going to bring up sales on this one. This is, hey, let's talk about this partnership so far. What's working? What's not working? How could we improve it, etc. And do it a lot. And again, open communication. And the more open you are with them, the more open they'll be with you. So don't let it be a surprise and do it at the end.
Right. Well, guys, I think we're at our time limit here. Want to leave a few minutes for Q&A, but overall, just some awesome stuff here from both of you guys. Really appreciate Doug joining the Sponsor CX webinar series with us. We're hoping to do these more frequently and more often, so I'm sure we'll see you back on another one in the future. But with that being said, if any of you listening have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comment Q&A section. We can try to answer those real quick. And if we can't today, then we can follow up through email and answer those for you. I'll just leave a few minutes here for all of you to ask questions.
It could be anything now. It could be like top pitchers in the 1970s for the Oakland A's, specifically the 1972 3-4 team. I'm just saying that. It could be best University of Kansas basketball players of all time, my starting five. I mean, you could ask any question, I'll answer it.
I want to hear that. I want to hear your Kansas starting five right now, actually, now that you said that. Let's hear it.
See, I'm an old school guy. So remember that. So I'm going to have a lot of the old school players in there. So you always got to go Wilt the Stilt as your center. Mind you, that's where Allen Fieldhouse was built because of him, because they couldn't fit literally him and all the fans that wanted to go. That's the house that Wilt built, is Allen Fieldhouse. So then, what my dad's favorite player of all time is on that team, who not a lot of people talk about, whose daughter, mind you, is fantastic, JoJo White. And I'll let you figure out who his daughter is, but let's just say Minnesota Twins runs, it runs all the revenue for him. No, Mika's awesome. So that's Mika's dad right there is definitely on there. Paul Pierce is on that team. There's a guy named Clyde Lavellette as well that's on that team. And then the point guard would be a guy, Jack Vaughn, who's actually the current coach of the Nets. So there's my starting five for you.
Doug, I'm really glad you brought up Minka. You know why? Because that is the one person that has a stronger shoe game than you.
She does. It's I counted. You asked me. I have 48 ones of the Jordans, but she's got me in the shoe game. She's got me beat.
Hers are. If you don't know Minka, you should try to get to know her, try to network with her. But she has got a true sense of fashion, and a lot of it is around her shoes. So.
We've got a couple of questions that came in that kind of got the ball rolling. Looks like the first one, in terms of specific storytelling examples in pitches, what creative ways have you seen this utilized?
Drew, you want to take that, or me too?
You go first. You can take that one first.
Yeah, I'm going to read that again. So in terms of specific storytelling examples and pitches, I think really it's getting down to is the use of videos. If you aren't using videos, you need to be like, again, I'm going to go back. If you're using PDFs, stop doing that. Like, again, stop. But you need to have videos in there to talk about it, show it, etc. Because again, think about your kids, right? So, they're watching videos all the time, right? But they're only watching like 30-second long videos, a minute at the most. So people don't have a big, attention span. So focus on, they're focusing on videos, but short, sweet, to the point, show them exactly what they got, and you're good.
Love that. That's great. Yeah, thank you, Rishi, for the question there. The next one by Jasmine, she asked, how do you pitch your sponsorship deck without sounding too pushy?
You want me to take that? Or you want it?
Up to you. You go ahead.
Again, it gets down to, you've got to get to know that client, right? Asking all the questions for that one. If you ask all the questions, and again, focus on their pain points, right? And how you are going to help them achieve their pain points. Again, is, what I learned a long time ago, and this was Greg Economy who taught me this. So way back when, and he's the original OG right there. But is focus on them, not you. Simple as that, right? So you got to focus it on them. And again, is like whenever I've thought about that, and he told me back that, when we were still when we were the Tampa Bay Devil Rays before we turned it into the Tampa Bay Rays. And ever since that, it's always been my mind to think about that. What can I do to make Jesse look good? So same thing when you're doing the pitch. It's not about me. It's what we can do to help you look good. Then we did our job.
And I think that's a good point too. And even if you're doing like a teaser overview to help get a meeting, show them who your audience is, show them why they should take a meeting, right? And again, to Doug's point, it's about them, not about you.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. We got time for maybe one or two more awesome questions coming in, guys. Really appreciate you all being involved here. One that stood out to me is, how do you effectively follow up or avoid getting ghosted? That's one that I'm curious to hear an answer for as well.
I laugh at the ghosting right there. I think, again, the new generation people just, once COVID started, it changed everything, right? But again, go back to relationships. If I have a relationship with Drew, he's going to return my call. He's going to return my text. So the more you get to know that person, right? We have that personal relationship with it. He's going to get back to me. Now he's going to hear it from me. Like, hey, dude, what's up, dude? On that one. So again, is you've got to get to know the client. Be real. They're always getting sold to, right? So again, is what sticks out that you all can do. But again, is a lot of times I rely on relationships for that one, because again, I know, again, if people don't want to do business with a-holes. It gets back to that. So again, that's what I always kind of think about when it's up there. But rely on those relationships. So you don't have to worry about ghosting.
And I think too, to piggyback on that is, I think if you if you are bringing value to your follow-up, if you are outlining, like Doug said earlier, the next steps and holding each other accountable to those next steps, you're gonna get ghosted less than you normally would. Now, can we fully prevent ghosting? No, but these steps, right, will take you to the right path to not get, ghosted. So
Yeah. Totally agree there. Last question we got here. We'll follow up with some answers to some of these after the fact, but I think one more that stood out to me that we can answer real quick is, how much have you seen social activity become a part of the deal?
Oh, it's
Yeah.
in every single deal that you do. Years ago, you gotta remember, it's changed too because of how the money has changed as well. So for instance, here I'll go back to when Drew and I were selling college. You had this amount of rights that you could do. And social really was in there, so you had to go ask for it. Baseball, you had to deal with BAM, et cetera. But every single partner that you come across now, again, 99.9% of them, not everyone, is going to ask for social on that one. It's so key. Think about, it's changed sponsorships. So I'm going to go back to the Atlanta Braves. Now, I was kind of a part of a deal when I was at MBI with Racetrack, right? And what they did with the freeze. We knew that all we had to do is do it one time, and that thing was going to take off from every social perspective that you could think of. And guess what? It did, right? And what they love when someone's running a race and they fall on their face, whatever it makes, but it's awesome. But that's where you really start showing value what you didn't pay for, that just like earned on that one. It's fantastic. So yes, you've got to really incorporate social media. If you aren't, you got to get with the program on that one, but you've got to show that to people, because again, then you could have you and your team and a team of people and their people really getting it out there in what you're doing.
Totally. And it's also easy to measure those metrics, right? It's easy to see the click rates. It's easy to gain an understanding of what and how many people have seen it, and the brand presence and how much money that can account for. That's another great way to be able to over deliver. If you're able to generate enough likes, enough views, I think we're all seeing it right now with Inter Miami and Messi. I think we'd be crazy to not mention that, but the amount of exposure, I think some of like Publix, and then was it High Noon or something, right, that got on just some of the pictures that people posted online. This is all like unearned or unpaid media, but like, think about that. Find ways in unique ways to captivate an audience. Not everybody's going to have a Messi type player on their team, but you can kind of take that example and try to figure out strategic places to highlight partners, and do it in a way that could go viral. Create new ideas, new experiences.
And just to add to it, but you also have to think of negative things of how social could be. So think about how many teams that have players screw up over the last few years, right? Or owners screw up on that one. It could go viral positive and it could go viral negative. So you have to be prepared. It's no longer that sponsorship is over here and marketing's over here and tickets. They all have to work together in this one, because it could, can hit the fan real quick on that one. So you always have to be prepared.
Absolutely. I think we're at our time limit, guys. Really appreciate both of you. This was an awesome learning experience for me. I hope it was for everyone else who attended. We'll send out a link to the recording for all of those that register. But thank you everyone for your time. This concludes our webinar discussion for today.
Thanks everyone.